Welcome to the Sports Investor Podcast, where it's all about smart sports betting. Here is your host, Professor MJ.
Hello guys, welcome to episode number 2 of the Sports Investor Podcast. I'm Professor MJ from Quebec City in Canada. In the first episode, I mentioned that the main objective of this podcast is to help you become a savvy sports investor who is making smart moves.
Yes! Yes!
Rather than a sports gambler who is relying on luck. That session was more intended for beginners, as I explained how to understand odds both in decimal and American format. We also talked about moneyline bets, spread bets, as well as bets on totals. I also covered the critical relationship between odds and probabilities, where the main thing to remember was that you should bet any team for which your estimation of their win probability exceeds the bookie's implied win probability. The final section of the podcast unveiled the number one rookie mistake, which is to look at the day's schedule and to decide which team you are going to put your money on without even having looked at the lines posted by sportsbooks. It allowed me to emphasize our mantra. It's all about the odds. Always remember that the odds are what matter the most. If you have not listened to this episode and you are intrigued by this little summary I just gave you, I invite you to do so. Now, I get asked on a regular basis about which sportsbooks you should open an account with. Of course, it depends on what type of player you are and your particular needs. But I finally decided it was time to fill the gap by writing my own in-depth sportsbook reviews. I must warn you, they are brutally honest reviews, so don't expect me to only say good things about bookies, which is what 99% of other websites are doing, as they are really promoting sportsbooks rather than reviewing them. I tell you both the good and the bad, based on my own experience with them, as well as what I read on several online forums that I'm constantly monitoring. Today in this podcast session, I'll be reviewing a sportsbook called 888 Sport. I invite you to go to my website, professormj.com, and click on Sportsbook Reviews in the header menu to get updated ratings. At the time of this recording, which is July 2017, I've written 20 full reviews. My grade for 888 Sport is 82%, which has them ranked in 12th place out of 20. This is subject to change in the future, of course. Alright, so let's get started on this review. I'll kick it off with some quick facts about 888 Sport, followed by a list of pros and cons about this bookmaker. I'll briefly touch the supported methods of deposit and withdrawal before moving on to some interesting stories I found on online forums, which are basically player experiences with 888 Sport, both good and bad. I'll end the review with my bottom line. Let's get started right away. Section number 1. Quick facts. .888 Sport was launched online in 2008 and is located in Gibraltar on the south coast of Spain. Since the majority of my listeners are either from the US or Canada, let me mention they are accepting Canadian players, but Americans are not allowed to have an account with them. They are listed on the stock exchange as 888 Holdings plc since 2005 under the ticker 888.L. The company started operating in 1997 as Virtual Holdings Limited when they launched Casino on Net and eventually the more well-known Pacific Poker in 2002. It was launched by two brothers from Israel, Avi and Aaron Shaked, who teamed up with another couple of brothers, Shay and Ron Ben Yitzhak. What's funny is the concept of online casinos was first presented to Aaron Shaked during a conference gathering a bunch of dentists. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. He was known to be making generous donations to good causes. Section number 2. List of pros. Alright, so let's list 5 things I like about 888 Sport. Advantage number 1. The number of side and prop bets available is stunning. For example, there were 187 betting options on one of the Pittsburgh Penguins versus Nashville Predators NHL Finals game. Some examples: will both teams score at least 2 goals in regulation? Nashville minus 5.5 shots versus Pittsburgh plus 5.5 shots. Several player matchups to score more goals, like Philip Forsberg versus Sidney Crosby. Several player matchups to score more points, like Arvidsson versus Malkin, etc. They have a wide array of alternatives too. For instance, you could bet on the total number of goals to be over or under 2, or 2.5, or 3, all the way to 8.5. Advantage number 2. Live betting is also great at 888 Sport. First of all, they have lots of games, and even sports that you don't typically see, like table tennis and snooker. Once again, the scope of bets offered is wide. Let's consider tennis, for example. Of course, you can bet on who wins the match, but also who will win specific sets or specific games, or the total games per set, or the exact score for a particular game. There seem to be endless possibilities. Here's the third advantage. 888 Sport has an innovative cash-in feature, which allows you at any time to get a set amount of money for your pending bets. Suppose you risk $100 to win $30 on a heavily favored tennis player to win the second set. If he's currently trailing the second set, you might be offered, say, $40. If you accept the offer, the bet is off and you end up with a $60 loss because you originally wagered $100 but got $40 back. It does not matter how the rest of the second set plays out. You lost $60. If your player ends up losing the set, you made a good decision because you avoided a worse loss, which would have been $100. However, if he makes a comeback and wins the second set, you'll feel like banging your head against the wall for accepting the $40, because you could have gotten $130 back instead, which is your original $100 stake plus the $30 potential profit. Advantage number 4. This is a giant company whose financials are not hidden since it's listed on the stock exchange and therefore must file annual reports. Here's the final and 5th advantage. As you'll see later, the deposit and withdrawal methods are numerous at 888 Sport. Section number 3. List of cons. Let's move on to the other side of the coin. 4 things I don't like about 888 Sport. Disadvantage number 1. The number one drawback from this bookie is how quickly they limit smart bettors. If you place bets on lines that are consistently higher than the general consensus, that is, versus lines offered by other sportsbooks, 888 Sport will quickly detect it and drop your betting limits in a hurry. If your intention from the get-go is to take advantage of some weaker lines, I advise that you bet hard right from the beginning. Disadvantage number 2. Small market leagues are harder to find at 888 Sport compared to other major bookmakers. Disadvantage number 3. I'm stunned that such a big sportsbook does not have customer service available around the clock. They do have office hours, so you cannot contact them 24 hours a day. It seems a bit strange coming from a company with such a big budget. Speaking of customer service, I've read on discussion forums several complaints about how poor this department can be. We'll discuss this issue later on when I'll be reporting good and bad stories about 888 Sport. Disadvantage number 4. Their promotions are not bad, but I rate them below average. They don't have the typical sign-up or reload bonuses. Upon opening a new account, the only promotion in place is called Treble Winnings. 888 Sport will triple the winnings of your very first bet, whose risk amount must not exceed $10. That's nothing spectacular. On top of that, the extra winnings are not paid in cash, but rather awarded as free bets. So unless those freebies are winners, you are not getting anything. On the positive side, they constantly have some money-back specials, but again with some restrictive conditions. Here are a couple of concrete examples. First, they were offering a $5 free bet during the NBA playoffs. Condition: having placed at least 5 bets on a NBA playoff match. A second promotion consisted of getting refunded if your American accumulator or parlay on American sports failed by 1. Conditions: at least 5 legs to your accumulator, minimum odds 1.3 on each leg, and the refund was topped at $25. Geez, that's not very generous. Section number 4. Deposit and withdrawal methods. 888 Sport has so many supported methods for deposits and withdrawals that I won't list them all. Some of them only work for specific countries, so you really need to check out their website for details. They do accept credit cards, debit cards, Skrill, formerly known as Moneybookers, NetTeller, Entropay, and bank wires. Like I said, they have other methods like PayPal that only works if you are from Germany, Spain, the UK, Ireland, Italy, Portugal, Finland, Denmark, Austria, or Sweden. Or you can deposit via Yandex Money if you are from Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, or other countries from the same region. Or you can go with Apple Pay if you are from the United Kingdom. Again, check out their website for more details about the supported methods pertaining to your country. Section number 5. Player Experiences. First of all, I'd like to mention that the links to all stories I'm about to report to you can be found in my detailed written review at professormj.com in the Sportsbook Review section. So if you wish to read the whole stories, just go to my website for the appropriate links. In the specific case of 888 Sport, all stories were found on askgamblers.com, but they usually come from different sources like covers.com or Reddit, for example. So here's how it's going to go. Each story will start with a summary of what happened, and I'll follow up with my own analysis of the situation. So for instance, if a dispute came up between the player and the sportsbook, I'll let you know which side I believe was right. Or sometimes I'll be making general comments or giving some piece of advice to you. Story number 1. A user nicknamed Paul1297 from the United Kingdom won a large sum of money, which made him go over the monthly maximum withdrawal of $30,000. He wanted to withdraw more, so he had to wait an additional 30 days, which he was fine with. Once the 30-day period elapsed, the nightmare began for him. He made several phone calls while being transferred from one department to the other, trying to know when he would get his funds. They did not even know how much they owed to him.
You have got to be kidding.
The matter was finally resolved as the bookie claimed there was a technical error, but it does seem like customer representatives were not very helpful. Here's my analysis. If you need a good example of how to deal with sportsbooks when you have a problem, that's a good one. The player stayed polite despite his dissatisfaction, and he provided a lot of details and evidence, like specific dates, screenshots, etc. Bookmakers are more willing to listen to you if you don't yell at them. I tip my hat off to 888 for awarding a £200 bonus for the inconvenience. That's not a small amount, and it's always appreciated by players. Story number 2. Another player from the United Kingdom won a bit of money and asked for a payout. As is always the case, the sportsbook asked to verify his ID. The player completed the process and eventually received an email saying he was approved. So he went back on the website and asked for a withdrawal, which was declined a few days later because he needed to send ID documents, which he had already done and got approved for. The issue was resolved a few days later. Here's my analysis. Pretty weird that 888 Sport approved the verification process only to decline a later payout for that same reason. Are there miscommunication issues among departments? Sure, the player got his money, but his patience got tested. Here's the third story. A similar story to the previous one occurred to a guy from the Czech Republic. His payout request was denied for verification purposes, despite the player receiving confirmation 3 days earlier that his documents were fine and that he had been approved. But this time, there was a new twist to the story. When the player finally received the funds, he only got half the amount he had requested. It seems to have taken another week before he got the other half. Here's my analysis. We are clearly seeing a pattern here. Are we talking about incompetence or bad faith? Either way, dealing with their customer service does not sound as fun as spending a day at the beach. Story number 4. A guy requested a withdrawal around 8 a.m. on a Thursday. He was told by customer service it would take 48 hours to process. He got upset on the following Saturday for not having received the money by 8 a.m. on that day. He eventually got his funds on the next Tuesday. Here's my analysis. This time I'm siding with the sportsbook. Maybe the customer representative did not mention the usual delay was 48 business hours, but I would expect that to be the case. Some banks are closed on weekends. So by asking for a payout on Thursday morning, that would lead us to Monday morning rather than Saturday morning. The funds cleared one day later. I don't believe it's worth complaining about. I'm aware that when it comes to money, we tend to get testy, but sometimes we need to take a deep breath. I don't blame 888 Sport in this case. Story number 5. A player's withdrawal was blocked due to a mismatch between the registration name and the one appearing on the verification documents. He says he used a nickname when he originally opened the account, not thinking it would do any harm. The name on the account was changed and the matter was eventually resolved. Here's my analysis. Don't ever register by using a nickname or a false name. You will run into trouble when you try to withdraw your winnings. Always be honest with sportsbooks. Lesson learned for that person. And here's the final and 6th story. A player had been waiting for 8 days for his payout to be processed and could not get information about its status. Again, a technical error was blamed before the player got paid. Here's my analysis. As you can see, technical errors and lack of support by customer service seem to be recurrent. It looks like people end up getting paid, but that's a bit of a concern to me. Section number 6. Bottom line. The big upside to this sportsbook is its wide variety of live betting and side prop alternative bets. They are a dream come true for those who enjoy those types of bets. If you are a bonus hustler, 888 Sport is not the best option for you. Also, remember they are one of the quickest in the business to identify professional gamblers, so you need to hit them hard very early if you wish to earn serious money before they limit you. This bookie has a strong reputation in the industry, but I remain a bit cautious considering the many complaints about withdrawal problems and customer service not being very helpful or knowledgeable. So that's it for today's episode of the Sports Investor Podcast. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I invite you to join my Facebook group if you wish to receive my free daily picks or be kept up to date on the content I put out for smart sports investors like you. My community of 500 and plus members also get the opportunity of playing free prediction contests where you can win cash or prizes. Come and say hi at facebook.com/groups/ProfessorMJ. I hope to see you there. So again, thank you very much for spending a part of your day with me. This is Professor MJ. I'm looking forward to talking to you in the near future. Goodbye.